Welcome, Inside Great Minds listeners. My name is Adam Outland, your host on Inside Great Minds, where we interview top performers in different fields and classes, top leaders, and we get to dig in to unpack their thinking and their decision-making that makes them successful. And today we have a real treat. We get to meet Bill Eshenbaugh. Bill is the president and founder of the Eshenbaugh Land Company, where he has been awarded the top residential land sales nationwide award and the top land sales nationwide award. So he is literally one of the best in the nation at what he does in land sales. He's active in brokerage and land development in the Tampa Bay area, where he's operated for more than 35 years. He's weathered and prospered through several real estate cycles. And we get to really unpack that in this episode, is what it means to weather the downturns and the upcycles in the market. And his tenacity and fervent passion for the business has earned him a special nickname in the industry. They call him the Dirt Dog. He's a frequent industry speaker. He's a teacher. He's actually been an instructor on the Realtor Land Institute. He's co-authored and taught multiple courses on land fundamentals and land brokerage. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode, whether you're interested in learning more about how land and commercial and residential real estate work at a high level, or you're just interested in the stories of how someone has become a top performer in their class over a long career. So help me in welcoming Bill, and I hope you enjoy this episode on Inside Great Minds. So how does someone go from Western Pennsylvania, working a farm, to wanting to go to Pennsylvania State University for a finance degree? What were you thinking at that time about what you wanted? Were you like, get me out of here, I want to go to the big city? Were you thinking, well, I think maybe it'd be good to just understand finances a little bit better? What motivated you to make that decision and make that part of your path?
At 16, I was absolutely sure I wanted to go to college. I did not want to farm. And I'm thinking to myself at that point, my dad's 66. I'm the oldest of five. Well, I better get an education. Otherwise, I'm going to be stuck on this farm because he's going to die
Yeah.
of a heart attack or something, and I'm going to be stuck here. So I need to make my way out. My mother had been a teacher. My father actually taught one-room schools. My mother also started teaching in one-room schools, but taught 16 years in public schools. Wanted me to be a teacher. I thought that was pretty cool. I liked history, and my whole thought process was very simple. I had a girlfriend who was going to be a nurse. Between a teacher and a nurse, we had to be able to buy a house, buy a car, get through life. Never thought too much more beyond that. My cousin, who was my father's favorite nephew and had lived on the farm during the Depression, when his mother and dad had to come back and lost their jobs in the city, had to come back on the farm, grew up to be really close to my dad. He was 19 years older than me, and he came by one Sunday and said, "I'd like to go for a ride." I'm 16. Sure. He has a nice, beautiful Buick convertible. We go for a ride. He said, "Tell me about this teaching thing. What's that all about?" And I said, "Well, Mom was a teacher." He said, "Do you know what a teacher makes?" I said, "Actually, I don't." He said, "Well, they make $3,400 in your district right now." This is 1958, I guess. Yeah, 58. Made $3,400. He said,
Wow.
"Do you know how much of a struggle that is?" I said, "No, I don't. I know my teachers all wear suits to school. They all have a car that's 4 or 5 years old. They all have a house." He said, "I don't want your dad to know this or your mother, but I made $100,000 last year in real estate." I said, "Wow, how'd you do that?" And he said, "Well, I have apartments. I'm building houses, and between me and my team, we sold 1 million linear feet of aluminum siding in a small town." He said, "You make a lot of money when you sell 1 million linear feet of aluminum siding." He said, "But I would like to encourage you to think about maybe going to Penn State where he had gone. And maybe you ought to think about real estate and finance." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'll tell you what, why don't you come visit me for a week in Ohio?" Okay. I had just got my driver's license. I had hundreds of thousands of miles under my belt driving on back roads since I was 11 or 12 years old. My dad and I would go out at night, and I'd sit between his legs and drive a car. And I drove a truck on a farm starting at 7 or 8 years old. Just why? Because you had to, right? So anyhow, I know how to drive. I got my license 3 days after I turned 16. All I had to do was pass the test, right? And so, wow, I'm going to go on an adventure. I've never been out of the state of Florida, or excuse me, the state of Pennsylvania. I'm going to drive 150 miles over to Ohio to see my cousin. So I take a few days and go do that. And one of the things he did was take me to to a meeting with Prudential Insurance in Cleveland. And we're down in farm country, New Philadelphia, Ohio. It's an hour and a half drive up to Cleveland. And he said, make sure you bring a jacket with you and a white shirt and tie. Oh, okay, great. So we go to this meeting. We get in an elevator, get to the top floor of this building looking over Lake Erie. We're meeting with Prudential Insurance Company of America. They are lending money to him on a subdivision. And so we spend half a day with him. And they take us to lunch at a beautiful club. You know, I'm like, I don't know which fork to use, man. You know, why do we have two forks here? And so we have a beautiful lunch. And one of the things I remember, they laid out these plans, and he's looking over in the corner, and he said, Bill, look here. And he's showing me a lift station in the corner of the plan. He said, I'm going to bury $25,000 lift station in the corner of this subdivision. Bury it. All it does is pick up doo-doo and ship it down the street. Wow, $25,000. I don't think our farm is worth $25,000. So my eyes are popping, right? And on the way back, he took a couple of detours and showed me an apartment project that was partially complete and fenced off. He showed me a shopping center in the same condition, fenced off, look, weeds growing up in the block, it had stopped. And he said, do you know what is wrong with these projects? I said, no, I have no idea. Now, this is 1958, first recession since World War II.
Yeah.
Right? We're in a recession. He said, I can guarantee you those people did not have their financing right, or they would have had the money to complete the project. Either not enough equity, the debt was wrong, they have fallen short somehow of completing the projects. So to think about that. Okay, well, I'm thinking about it, right? So that led to him convincing me to think about Penn State. In the fall of my senior year, I'd already been accepted to a teacher's college, and my dad told me on Tuesday morning before I went to school, he said, by the way, tonight, get your chores done early. We're going to Butler for a meeting at Penn State. They have a recruiter visiting the high school down there. Okay. We go in. My mother's not all crazy about this. She really wants me to go to this teacher's thing. It's all wrapped up. But Dad and I go because Wally, my cousin, has helped prime the pump here. We go down. I fill out my application. There's no SATs. There's no big deal, right? Fill out my SAT or fill out my forms. I think we had to give them $50 or something. I can't remember now. But that's in October. I don't hear a word from them. Well, no big deal. I'm accepted to the other school. So what? Well, on the day of my prom, and by the way, on prom day, you skip school. You washed your car, you went and picked up your tux, all this stuff, right? And the day of my prom, the mail came, and in the mail is my acceptance to Penn State. Now, this is a big deal. I went to a high school with 130 of us in our senior class. About 15% is going to college, and of that 15%, all but one or two are going to go to a state teachers college, which is where I was headed. One guy is going to Princeton on Rutgers on a full-ride scholarship for football. Cool. No one else is going to a big school. I get my Penn State acceptance on my prom day. I am now the big guy in town, right? So, yeah, I'm going to do that. I love that campus. I've been there on a 4-H mission or two. I'm doing it. So that got me in those forks in the road, and that guidance from Wally, who was a mentor for a long time in my life, got me on that trail. And off I went to Penn State, and finance was my major, real estate was my minor. 4 years later, a little diploma in hand.
Yeah. And did I read this right, that after that you ended up in a trucking company?
Yeah, I spent a couple of years with Prudential, actually, Prudential Insurance. Wally helped me get signed on there. I did a short stint at Dun & Bradstreet just to understand credit. Then I went to work for Prudential, and I was lending money on homes in Youngstown, Ohio.
Okay.
Small office. One guy, 30 years in the business, and me as a kid. Houses were selling for around $10,000. We had to appraise everyone, had to measure everyone. And Prudential was a pretty easygoing company, first of all. 9 to 5 with a break at 10, a break at 3, and an hour and a half for lunch. It wasn't a very hard job. And I said, wow. So, well, I've got to measure these houses and everything else. Why not do them on the way to work? Go measure a house at 7 in the morning. It's daylight even in the wintertime at 7 a.m. Or measure one on the way home, maybe two on the way home. Saturday mornings are free. Go do 3 or 4 on Saturday. The other thing I figured out was everybody got delayed. Every time we had a meeting with the guys in Cleveland and Akron, and the big problem was always getting back the employment verifications. They would take 2 or 3 weeks by mail to send them to one of the major employers and get them back. Well, in Youngstown, There were 3 steel mills. They were the major employer to people who were buying $10,000 houses. So, well, I think I'm kind of a charming guy. I go down, I've got to be some young lady in personnel down there I can dazzle a little bit, right? So I end up meeting them, end up buying them flowers, all this stuff. And I would drop off an employment verification on Monday night. I get it back Tuesday night when I went back down. They'd have it ready for me. So I picked up 2 weeks in my process. I didn't tell anybody, not even my boss, how I'm doing it. But I was picking up 2 to 3 weeks time, plus I was processing a lot more applications than anybody else in the region for Prudential. And it was kind of fun, I didn't share how I was doing it. I didn't tell anybody I'm working at 7 in the morning or 7 at night or Saturday morning. It's none of their business, right? It's my time. But it's just fun to be way ahead of the curve. And then Prudential decided to raise their rates. And I didn't know at the time. I didn't find out for 20 years later. They did not want to be lending money in steel mill towns that did not have water transportation. They could see this energy crunch coming back in 1965 or 66 that came in 73 when we had the OPEC forums and all the stuff that happened with all that. They could see it. So they decided to raise their rates in small towns like Youngstown. So I had no business. I wasn't doing any new business. Nobody was doing business with us. We're a percentage above everybody else, 1 point above everybody else. Yeah. So I thought, uh-oh, Ruckrow, this is not good. And as I lamented that at dinner one night with my in-laws, my father-in-law said, well, why don't you go to work for me? I said, doing what? And he said, I got a trucking company. I said, yeah, well, I don't know anything about trucks, He said, you don't need to. I need somebody with a college education that can figure things out. You impressed me as a pretty smart young guy. So he offered me a job, as I kiddingly said later, less money and more hours than I was used to. So I went to work for him. I worked my way up through. I became president of the company. And we started out as coal haulers, mining coal. He was a mining company, really, and he had a trucking company as adjunct to that, which hauled the coal. And we went one way from Pennsylvania to either Ohio or New York to a power plant, dumped the coal, and came back. Pretty simple, right? Now, we had no safety department. We had a drawer full of lies on applications, physicals that were faked. Guys would show their blood pressure is 300 over 200, going, I don't think that sounds quite right. Maybe somebody made this out and signed it themselves. So, and we had a lousy safety record. We had a terrible safety record. We had really high insurance rates. So my first job was, since I worked for an insurance company, they gave me all the insurance policies. I said, now look, I never saw an insurance policy at Prudential. They said, that's all right, you can figure it out, right? So I started digging through it and figuring out how do we get a safety program, how do we put together a compliance program to actually have drivers with real driver's licenses, have drivers with real physicals in our files, screen, choose, get rid of some guys that are really dangerous and had a bunch of accidents and all that kind of stuff. So worked my way all the way up through operations, ended up as president when I was about 34, 35 years old. Only because the guy ahead of me had a heart attack. He was 15 years older than me, he had a massive heart attack. And I thought, life was good, man. I'm going along, I'm 35, I'm making some pretty good money. I'm second in command or third in command, depending on how you view it. Now I'm in charge. Like, oh, wow. Yeah. This is a shock. And we were doing fine. One of the things I started getting us into was backhauling, finding something to come back with, because we were coming back empty every day. Take a load of coal up, come back empty. At the same time, the interstate highways had been developed around our region, and they needed salt for ice control purposes. And the salt happens to lie all along the Great Lakes because of the way the glaciers deposited salt, carved out the Great Lakes. Salt mines were under Cleveland, under Erie, under Buffalo. Well, that's exactly where we're taking coal. So, same time, the railroads were in a state of collapse in western Pennsylvania and western New York. They had combined the New York Central and the Penn Central into one big railroad. And that became Conrail. So now you have a government-owned, union-run railroad. There's a combination of two things that won't work well. So the railroads were taking forever. Salt wasn't getting delivered. The roads were covered with snow, and they couldn't get the salt they needed. So I figured out how to arrange to haul salt back, get the rights to do it, haul salt back with our coal trucks. We went from 50% loaded to 80% loaded. You make money when you add a little loaded mile factor to your thing. But we went through 2 strikes. First one we beat, the second one we didn't. We got organized by a union. And each time the contract came up, the work rules got worse. The benefits got better until July 1st, 1980. Jimmy Carter and Ted Kennedy handed us the deregulation bill for the motor carrier industry. We said, uh-oh. We had already seen the deregulation of the airline industry where Pan Am, Transeast, or several airlines had gone under. Eastern down in Miami had gone under. They were all union, and who came along? Companies like Southwest, non-union, eating their lunch, right? No benefits or fewer benefits. No work rules were even more important.
Yeah.
So I gave the union notice. You got a year. Come to grips with what we're going to do. I used the phrase, remember Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Remember the movie when they're being chased and they're at the top of a cliff and they grab their gun belts and say, we have to jump in that river. And one of them started laughing, said, "Well, I can't swim." And the other one said, "Hell, the fall is going to kill you. Don't worry about it. You had no other choice. These guys are going to shoot you." And I told the union, I said, we need to take this gun belt and hold it and jump off the cliff together. That's your only chance of surviving. Give me a new contract for 5 years that I can do something with. Make you work. You're going to have to work. We're going to cut your benefits down, but you're going to have some. You got some health care for your family, but your pension's going to be frozen. Well, they didn't believe me. They didn't buy that. They thought it was just a stall. It got bad. I had guard my house. I wouldn't let my wife and daughter answer the phone because it was somebody nasty threatening me every night. I had 2 guns in my car, 357 on my console, rifle behind me. Don't mess with me, man. I actually had a picket show up at the end of my driveway one day. I had a nice house, a nice long driveway. This picket is standing at the end of my driveway, picketing me personally. And I pulled out there and said, man, you're in a bad spot. He said, why? I said, it's deer season. I don't have any safety zone signs posted. I would hate to see you get shot out here accidentally somehow. He said, you're threatening me. Now, if I was threatening you, I'd be putting this 357 alongside your head. I'm not threatening you. I'm just telling you you're in a bad place. You might get shot out here because it's deer season. Well, of course, he went and filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. He went to the state police and said I threatened his life. None of it stuck, but I meant it,
Yeah.
So anyhow, end of 12 months, we shut it down. We said we're not going to go broke trying to baby you guys along. We're going to take our liquidity. We own our equipment. We own our real estate. We have a couple million in accounts receivable. We're going to do something else.
Yeah.
So we did. Boom. Long story.
You know, uh, just listening to you talk, it's interesting. Like I think that we're not even through your 30s, and there's already a lot of examples of where you've taken very different industries and found success in it. And I think these are just little references I'm drawing, but I think the definition of smart for some people is well educated. But I think in a lot of the interviews that I've had, what I've come to define as smart is the ability to make connections and see patterns and ask really good questions. And you know a lot about a lot, and it seems to me that you have a curious mind, and that you know a lot of the right questions to ask. Because just in that trucking company, it was seeing an opportunity to take loads back, or if it was figuring out how compliance works. I mean, it takes a curious and interested mind to want to understand those things to be successful at it. So I don't know, would you say that's been part of your pathway to success, and how you might define smart? I'm kind of curious as to what you think has helped you be successful at some of these early careers that you had.
Yeah, somehow my wife tells me that I have really good instincts. I have good instincts about people.
Hmm.
I apparently smell a rat without seeing the long tail and the long nose. But so I have good instincts there. I think I learned a lot of it because on the farm, first of all, it was 5 a.m. every day. When I got my driver's license, for example, my dad was with me because I had to have an adult with me. Got my driver's license. On the way back, we stopped to get a banana split. That was a big luxury. We didn't spend money on banana splits,
Yeah.
but we stopped at a little roadside. And we're just talking, and my dad was good at kind of benchmarking things. And then so I'm sitting there, I said, "Well, Dad, how late can I stay out? Have you and Mother discussed rules now that I can drive?" He said, "Oh yeah, there's no rules." I said, "There's no rules?" He said, "No, you can stay as late as you want." Wow, really? Yeah. He said, "And the only rule still in place is you're up at 5 a.m."
Yeah.
Well, it didn't take too long on Saturday out there baling hay all day to realize that coming in at 3 in the morning and getting up at 5, you're dead tired and hot, it's dirty, it's nasty, it's lots of work, and it's still only 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you got a long ways to go. This is not such a great idea to stay out till 3 a.m. when you got to work like this the next day. So that was part of it. The other thing I think was part of it is that having very thrifty parents, and again, my dad was 50 when I was born, so Yeah, they don't spend money on anything. For a long time, we didn't even have a car. We had a truck, and the kids rode in the back of the truck to go to church. And we just didn't spend any money. So you became innovative. You had to think things through. How am I going to do this without spending money? How do we get this done? Maybe it was barter sometimes. We go to the grocery store and deliver 200 pounds of potatoes and bring home a sack of groceries. I mean, just stuff like that you had to figure out along the way, I guess. And so
Yeah.
I figured on the farm, for example, we were one of the first ones after World War II, mechanized the farm. It had been horse drawn mostly, but as soon as the war was over, my dad and his brother, who were partners on the farm, bought a tractor and a baler and a combine and a sprayer to spray weeds in cornfields. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I wasn't probably 12 years old. I had already learned how to spray because it wasn't that hard a job. You just had to not run over any corn, just stay down the rows. When your sprayer got empty, come back and fill it up, right? So we were way ahead of the curve. So I said to Dad one day, I said, all the neighbors seem to want somebody to spray their corn. He said, well, if you get ours all done, you can go spray it. We're going to charge them $10 an acre, and I'll give you $1 an acre for everything you spray. Oh, hot dog, man. So both he and I ended up making money with it. He came to me and said, at some point, I'm going to make you a deal. We have a big chicken operation here, and we start 2,000 new chickens a year. Next year, I'm going to make you a partner in the chickens. You and I'll be partners. I'll grub stake all the cost of them from day old peeps to all the feed you need till they start to produce eggs. And then they're only good for a year. And 1 year they go into a molt. So 1 year they go to the Campbell's soup factory somewhere and get new chickens, right? So it's pretty easy to measure the success. At the end of the year, they're all sold, you're done, count your books. So we're partners, right? And I thought, this is great, man. We're 50-50 partners. I'm now cleaning 2,000 eggs every night once they start to lay eggs. And it's like Lucy in the chocolate factory. If you don't clean 2,000 a night, you're cleaning 4,000 tomorrow night. And that's run them through a machine, clean them, grade them, candle them, put them in crates and everything else to learn how to do it. And at the end of that whole expedition, at the end of the year, we sit down. Mother had kept the books. Well, and he put in things like real estate taxes, electric bill. Well, I hadn't thought about those things as expenses. We get all done, a lot less than I thought it was going to be. And he said, now, your mother and I have decided that since you want to go to college, half this money goes in your college fund. Okay, that's fine. And you need school clothes, so 20% goes for school clothes. And it narrowed down. I ended up about 10% of what I thought I was going to get. But at least I made some money, he made some money. So it was just those kinds of entrepreneurial things that my dad was really good at encouraging me to do and get out there and work. And the harder you work, the more you made.
Yeah. 100%. And that's actually, one of a professional athlete, NFL player on a flight that I was sitting, we struck up a conversation, and he talked about how he got his start in life on a farm, and how that waking up early and the manual labor required really set his schedule for life, right? And it was that work ethic and that schedule that you work weekends and you work weekdays as a farmer, especially during certain seasons of the year. And he said, so when it was football season, I understood how to go to work, right? And I feel that probably resonates with you, because I think that's kind of how what you mentioned there is that you learned how to operate early, and you really understood the definition of work ethic, because that's what the farm life teaches you, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of hard work. It's rewarding to put in a good crop. It's rewarding to raise 2,000 chickens and get 1,995 eggs every day for a while. I mean, that's a great achievement, I think.
100%. The other thing that I think about when you're telling your stories is, man, you've worked hard and found some success, and you've had some major setbacks, right? I think we talk about with a lot of our entrepreneurs and business owners that we've had on this podcast, everybody's got moments in their life where they question, what direction they're headed, or they have they're taking risks in life, and so they're having setbacks. And I think you were sharing that after what happened with the trucking company, um, in the mid to late 1980s, you had another setback, right?
Well, we came to Florida.
Uh-huh.
First of all, when we were done with the trucking company, um, wanted to go to a right to work state, never have another union in front of me. Wanted to not ever have to go through Atlanta to get somewhere. Tampa had a brand new airport that opened here in the '70s, so that was kind of cool. And my first wife's, some of the first wife's family and I came down and we bought a golf course, and we
Wow.
developed the land around the golf course, then built houses. So we hit it just right. We started having houses on the market in 1983.
Yeah.
The 21% prime was over. Interest rates had started to fall to 13%, 12%, 10%, and people could finally sell their houses up north, and they were migrating here. And so we were selling to a 55 plus crowd with cash. That's kind
Yeah.
of cool. That was kind of good. And that went on for 4 or 5 years. And I ended up as president of the home building company. My primary functions were two things: find savings and loans that would lend us money to build houses or buy land, and find the land and develop it for the company. I never had a builder's license, and my wife was in charge of sales, but she and I were having some difficulties, and part of the difficulty was just working with all of her family members who are now here. That's a whole new element. And if you criticize somebody, you're also criticizing your brother or a sister. And they were Sicilian, so you're either for me or against me, man. You better not be speaking ill of my brother. Well, I'm trying to get your brother to work. I'm trying to get your brother to come in before 9 a.m. or stay till at least 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you know. So we had a lot of stress there that
Yeah.
might not, if we'd done something different, it might not have ended the marriage, but it ended. It was just too
Yeah.
stressful for both of us. So here I am wow, I'm in Florida, been here for 5 years. Now I get a telegram on a Sunday from the family firing me. Whoa, her brothers fired me. So holy smokes, man, I'm 45 years old, I'm unemployed. I went down to Boca Grande, which was a big fishing place here. It's tarpon season. I said, you know what? I have spent all my adult life working really hard. I ran a trucking company. It was stressful, lots of moving parts. The home building company is a lot of moving parts. Your salespeople promise something on Saturday and Sunday, and the rest of the week you try to deliver whatever they promised. So we had
I,
50, 50 years of people building houses with us at one point. I'm going down to Boca Grande. I'm just going to hang around, man. I'm getting divorced.
yeah.
I'm gonna drink at night. I'm gonna fish in the daytime, and there might be some women in between hanging around the marina down here. Who knows? So I was there, and while I was there, I actually had one of the early, we called them car phones then, but I had a car phone, and my car phone would ring once in a while, and it was a builders association in Tampa president calling me up and going, "Hey, we got a builder coming from Texas looking for some lots. You know all about lots. Who has some lots for sale?" Well, I
Yeah.
just got I had my sales license. Well, I just got my broker's license that summer. So I started brokering land to these Texas builders coming here because we were still in a good market. Texas was not. They were collapsing out there early on, and I sold lots in 87, 88, 89 until everyone got worried about the savings loan collapse. And that led me, when that collapsed, again, here I am, 1990, job's over for the developer I was working for, and I ended up playing golf with a guy whose brother-in-law was with him. The brother-in-law gets actually in my cart. We're riding around. The brother-in-law says he's working for the RTC. He'd worked for a savings loan, the first one in Florida that had failed. He's working for them. And I should come down and take a look. I said, what would they want me for? He said, well, they need somebody in the sales center. They'd really like somebody with real estate experience. And I'd made a lot of money in a couple of years selling all these lots, but I'm not going to make any money next year. Next year's,
Right.
zero.
Yeah.
Nothing pipeline. And I don't want to ask him what he's making, but finally I figured out, I said, what do you think they'd pay a guy like me for my credentials? What would I be doing? He said, oh, depending on their slot that's available, somewhere between 70 and 80,000 a year. Ah, really? Doing
Yeah.
what? He said, run the sales center. Probably I think that's where they're headed next. Well, it was not what I had been making, but it's a lot more than I'm going to make, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
pay every week, huh? Right? And the check comes in the mail and you get paid every week. That's great, man. So I went in and signed up and got hired by the RTC to run the sales center for the state of Florida.
Hmm.
Most of the people there, and there were 400 of us, we were a brand new operation, brand new organization. They hired 400 people in Tampa almost overnight. Nobody knew what they were doing. It was a complete cluster in terms of organizational and support, and go in the office, you had no furniture, oh my goodness, well, it's coming, it was a mess. put me in the sales center, and the phone is going crazy. People want to buy RTC stuff. I have no inventory. I have no computer yet. I have a bunch of yellow pads because I decided that anybody who called me, I would sort them out. You want retail, you want land, you want office, shopping centers. You're all in, and you're a broker. You're all in different yellow pads. And I had these yellow pads just stacked around my credenza. When you called, I turned around, and I took my calls, which was really unusual for RTC people apparently. Took my calls, I returned my calls, and I categorized you. When you call me, I got your name, phone number, and fax number and address. So I decided I need to reach out to the commercial brokers. So the CCIMs were having a meeting one night, which is Certified Commercial Investment Members. I knew they were important in the real estate world. I wasn't one. But I went to the meeting. Well, everybody wants to talk to me because I got stuff to sell, right? So I'm there and we're chatting a little bit, and somebody said, "Well, how's it going?" I said, "Oh, it's really rough, man. I don't have they don't have a computer system. We don't have a client management system of any kind." Yeah. And one of the guys standing there said, "Well, you're a dumbass." And I said, "Well, I know that, but what's your proof?" I didn't, a person I never met before. And he said, "You need to go get yourself a compact laptop and ACT program, client management system." I said, "Yeah, what do I do with that?" He said, "First of all, what you don't do is you never take it in the office. It's okay. He said, never plug it into the government system. They can probably track you. But on your own time, take those yellow pads home and get those names pounded in. You're in a gold mine of leads and clients for the future. Get those names in organized." Wow. So when you talk about little crossroads, having gone to that meeting was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I left there 2 years later with 5,000 names in my database.
Wow.
We are still doing business with some of those people today who are
Wow.
investors, buyers, and friends now. So I know it's a long story, but that piece of advice, that crossroad, I didn't know it was coming. I just went to a meeting, right? And I came home with a gem. Didn't even know what a gem I had when I came home with it. But I launched my business on July 1st of 1992, my current business. And I knew there was a building up the street the RTC had for sale. And I knew the last 6 months there, I didn't put my fingers on things that I thought I wanted to touch when I got out, because there were some prohibitions about if you worked on an asset in May, you can't go out in the real world and sell it in July, right? There was
Sure.
a 6 month window. Okay, well, don't touch certain things, right? This building was up the street from me. It was unlisted with a broker. And a guy, I sent out a fax my first morning at 7 o'clock in the morning to a dozen people I thought might be buyers for that. Now, he had to do them one at a time. Fax didn't even have a fax tree yet, right? So, dozen faxes. Guy walks in at 10 o'clock. "Got your fax. I'm Jack. I want to buy that building." "Well, let's go look at it." We went up and we were lucky. It was open. Somebody was doing some work on it. We see the building. We come back and said, "What do they want for it?" And I told him, he said, "I'm going to offer him full price." So we fill it out. I had the contract forms because I worked there. I knew enough to take those with me. I knew who the asset manager was. We filled out a contract. We faxed it out we went a 90-day closing, which was going to be around the 1st of October. The asset manager happens to be working. He's going to be gone the day after that, for 2 weeks, because it's 4th of July weekend. He said, "I need this, but I need one thing. I need it to close September 30th because that's in this quarter. I need a sale this quarter." Perfect. We closed it in less than 90 days. It was over $1 million building. We got a 6% commission. I said, "Bang, this is going to work, man. I made 60 grand my first 90 days in commercial real estate." All right, you know.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
again, it goes back to my database of launching me and making me feel like I had something that would work. So
So yeah. So making having good instincts, being curious, and then honestly, the power of a network, right? I mean, you've established a lot of relationships over your career. You've through having integrity and doing what you say you're going to do, you've established a good reputation with those people, and that's allowed you to continue to serve them today. Is that pretty close to right?
that's right on.
I just need to follow you around and just build you up everywhere. No, but I mean, that's really interesting, because I know you mentioned already, that the scare being insolvent in '97, and then you mentioned at the beginning of this interview how that helped you prepare a little bit for the recession that hit in 2008, and how you were able to still keep staff on deck, right? And so just after 2008, I mean, you've been building this business through the 2000s, right? through that crisis in 2008 to what you have today. Is that accurate?
Yeah, in '97 I remade it. I said I'm going to only do land, and I set all the agents. I had 14 agents. We weren't making any money, and I set them down in October, and I said, guys, you know what? We've got Columbus Day coming, and then we got Thanksgiving and Veterans Day and Christmas. All going to be great holidays. But on January 1st, you're going to be celebrating it with somebody other than me. Wow, what do you mean? I said, we're not making any money. You're not making money. I'm not making money. It's not working. I'm going to help you transition to other firms. Some listings I might keep if they're land. The rest of them you can take them with you, but you're going to pay me referral fees on them. I just wish you well, but I'm not a good manager, obviously, of a general commercial firm. So we made a decision. I regrouped, and I just started focusing on land and working out, paying off my debts, and getting out of the debt. When we got to 2008, we'd had a pretty good run, a really good run. Brian joined me, John Sampson joined me in '05. We just crushed it, even '06, '07, '08. '08 came, rock row. So I thought, well, I got some money in the bank, and this thing can't last forever. I decided in July to go out to Utah, where I had a condo, take a class for my Utah license. I had sort of visions that maybe I'd transition, retire to Utah. I had a couple of clients already moved up there. They were doing a lot of business. Utah had not gone through the recession we were doing in Florida. Might be a good place to be a broker. And one of my clients had actually had me do a little bit of work for him, just look at some sites and things. And in order to take the Utah brokers courses, I had to take the most elementary 3-day course in class. He couldn't take it online. So I go up, arrive on Sunday, start on Monday. I go in first thing, get in the back of the classroom. I don't want to be the idiot answering all the questions or the wise guy everybody hates by noon. I'm just going to do my emails and sit back here. And when it comes to the Utah law part, pay attention because that's what I don't know. The rest of it I can probably pass first morning, because I've been doing this for a long time. I can pass all the elementary questions they're going to ask. The guy walks in, the instructor introduces himself. I've been in the business for 15 years, blah, 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 Does anybody know what happened this weekend in the Salt Lake Valley that will materially impact your career as a real estate agent when you're licensed? Well, this is a whole new class. I'm the only licensed broker in the room other than a teacher. They're all studying their fingernails, looking at their shoes, Nobody wants to answer that question. I don't know what he's asking them. And I had vowed I wasn't going to do anything, but finally my hand goes up in the air in spite of my resistance to it, right? It goes up and I said, well, IndyMac Bank failed out of California. As I read the paper yesterday when I came into town, there's 25 branches here. It's a big deal, and it's the first big bank to fail since the RTC days. First bank, 20 years or 15 years, whatever it is. And he said, bingo, you got it. And then he said, you got a really happy instructor. I've got 25 listings. I'm a very happy instructor because now I have a motivated seller, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, you don't even have a client. When they take over a bank, they put it in bankruptcy, basically, form a new bank, with FDIC in charge. You're nothing, man. You're not even a vendor.
Right.
You're out. Your list is done. Your list is repudiated. You don't even know what that word means. That's an ugly word, right? But I don't want to say that in front of the class. So I wait till the break and I go up and I tell them, they might check your premise. You might want to call the highest ranking person still over at any Mac bank that you can find and figure out how you can keep your listings alive becoming a vendor for the FDIC. Well, our 10-minute break turns into about 45-minute breaks. He's out in the courtyard walking around on the phone. He comes back here and he's hyperventilating practically. He said, what's your name? I said, Eshenbaugh. I said, Mr. Eshenbaugh, come up and explain to the class how wrong I was, So I give him the scoop, what happens when the FDIC takes something over. And I go back and sit down and I say, you know what? This guy's smart. He's a teacher. He's got 15 years experience and he doesn't know what happens. Nobody else with less than 15 years knows either. It's, you got some old dog with 20 years in this business or more probably knows what's going to happen when this all goes down. I think this is going to get a lot worse. So I sat in the back of the room for 3 days and worked on a business plan that when I got back to Tampa, I'm going to start calling on banks because they're going to have a problem, right?
Yeah.
So I came, had a business plan. Who I was going to see, made all these appointments, went in to see the banks. Every one of them, same story. Oh, we don't have any problems with this bank. Our loans are all secure, Even our land loans were no more than 60 or 70% loan to value. I said, well, how about your REO or ORE department? Do you have one of those? Oh, no, we got rid of that after the last crisis. We don't need one of those. We're not going to need one this time. I said, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm glad you made some sound loans. I said, one thing might happen. I think you're going to find that the feds are going to do stress tests on banks. They're going to come and look at your assets. They're going to look at what was the value of the asset when you made the loan, and what's the loan to value ratio, and how much has that value fallen. You know, are you now a 70% loan, or 80%, or 90%, or are you 120% loan? It's,
Mhm.
yeah, well, that's probably not going to happen because we made good loans. I said, okay, well, if it does, I found out in my RTC experience, lenders are better off if they've actually been proactive and had some new value assessment in their files. And you can get appraisals. You can order them up. They're going to cost you $5,000 to $10,000 an asset. You know, you might want to do that. However, if you want to save money and you want to expedite the process, we can do broker opinions of value. We're all accredited land consultants. We're all CCIMs in my firm. We can do them cheaper, faster, and it'll suffice.
Mhm.
They're not appraisals. We're not appraisers, and they're not appraisals, but they'll fill your file. And if you need to figure out how to do a six-part file for them, I can show you. Now I'm winging it. I'm just making this up. This stuff I remembered from my RTC days, right?
Yeah.
And I'd leave my card, and everybody would say, "Thank you very much for coming." By the third or fourth bank, I could write the script of what they're going to say to me. But I'm
Yeah.
leaving my card behind, and I'm following up with them. And oh my God, in the early part of '09, they start to call. They need our broker opinion of value. And I'd already given them his fee schedule and all this stuff. So we're getting busy. We're doing some work. Then I get the critical call. One of the people I called on needed 78 properties done in about 5 days because they're going to get the audit, and they're panicky and they're in trouble. They're really in trouble. I said, well, you need that many in 5 days? My fee has got to double up. He said, I don't care about your fees. I said, well, you got to be double what I quoted you because we're going to have to work round the clock, here to get them done. And he started emailing them to me, and we started working 18-hour days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And
Yeah.
Tuesday night, when we had to have them, we delivered 78 brokers' opinion of value. We billed out over $400,000. I divvied up some with Ryan, some with Nancy, who was with me at the time, and most of it for me and the company. Kept us all alive for the year. That
Wow.
one 5 day period of work. And that led to all the listings when the bank went down. We got all those listings from the bank, and we ended up selling $68 million worth of land in 2010. And it was
Wow.
easy because the banks were
Liquid.
30-day inspection, 30-day close, no
Yeah.
contingencies, boom, boom, boom. So we got paid quickly on land back then, and we were the only game in town that understood what we were doing in the land side of it for the banks. So it was, again, little epiphany. Go to take a class in Utah. The guy says something that triggers. Write a plan. Come back. Nobody wants you. Nobody wants you. Nobody wants you. Suddenly you're the best girl at the dance because it's now 1:30 in the morning and the bar's closing at 2.
It's a story also in the importance of history, right? I mean, people sometimes say, "Well, why should you be interested in history?" But right there is a application and a history lesson that served you really, really well in that moment.
Yeah. It
Um,
was instinctive. It was instinctive when he said that to me. I need to pay attention. It was instinctive to start calling on him. I spent a lot of time calling on people. Nobody wanted me for 6 months, but
yeah.
I knew they were going to need me. I just because of my RTC experience, which came from a ride in a golf cart in November of back before I got hired at the RTC, riding around with this guy in a golf cart playing golf with a stranger, telling me about I should go to work for the RTC. It was just these little crossroads. As Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take one, right? So
Well, maybe wrap up with this. I mean, you had a conversation with your cousin in Ohio that kind of piqued your interest in land sales and commercial real estate. And so my question would be, if someone today was getting into your industry for the first time, what advice would you give them about your industry, where it's headed, and what they should do to be successful?
I think that's a good question. Um, Land is the hardest component of real estate to institutionalize. Land is local. Landowners are generational, and they're local. And the old adage is people do business with people they know. People do business with people they trust. People really do business with people they know and trust. And
Yeah.
so, my advice, if you want to be in the land business, that you study it, you understand land, you read books about land, you get a four-wheel drive vehicle, You get on the land. You don't try to do it all from your computer or laptop screen. It's not all about all the imagery you can get. You can need to get out there and get on the land, shut your motor off, get out of the truck, smell the air. What's nearby? Sawmill making a whiny noise, or a chicken farm that smells bad. You just have to really dig into understanding land and landowners and what motivates them. One of the things that that helped set me apart: cowboy boots, jeans, and a pickup truck, because that's what landowners have. And I won a listing one time because I was the second broker in, and the first broker came from downtown for one of the big firms, showed up in a suit, nice wingtip shoes, tie, and a Lexus. And he couldn't get on the road. He had to park on the edge of the road. He couldn't drive into the property because he would gotten stuck. I showed up in a four-wheel drive, showed up in cowboy boots. I've been wearing cowboy boots since my trucking days. So
That's
landowners like that, you more identify with them. You shake hands with somebody without looking at their hand to see if it's dirty or not. Your hand will wash. Okay, so the guy's got dirt in his hand, so what?
Yeah.
You don't look at it and go, ugh, or bump elbows because the guy's hands are dirty. Shake hands with him.
Yeah.
Just so I guess some of it would understand it. Secondly, be prepared that it is a business that requires a lot of patience. And I've been asked for several years at Florida State at the real estate conference to come sit at the head of the table on a little 10-minute snippet that's entitled "If I Were 21 Again," right? So I sit down and I go, all these people are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. What would I do differently if I were 21? And I said, well, look, I got married at 22 and a baby at 23. Wonderful. Love my daughter. Love my wife. But it was a handicap financially because I found out that baby formula costs more per case than Budweiser. There's a shocking revelation when you're 23 years old. And it never gave me a head start. I was always in the hole. It was paycheck to paycheck, just trying to get to the next one. Don't get married at 21 or 22 years old. Get a plan. Go work for a while. Be 27 or 28 when you finally get married. 30 maybe when you have a baby. Give yourself a running start. But in the land business, it has its highs and it has its lows. And it's very, very long periods of time between those. You need to be able to get through and you make a lot of money. And you won't even know if you're a good land broker to your third year. Because it's a long fuse time you do something to get running. So you have to have the means to get there. You have to have the desire to live in poverty for a while, just get by. And then it can be very rewarding. But when it's very rewarding, make sure you pay your taxes. That's a big downfall for a lot of brokers. Make sure you put money away for the next cycle, And then you can start to invest in real estate. Then you can decide, well, I don't want to just be a broker all my life because you're only as good as your last deal. I may want to buy. I may want to invest, and those kind of things. So again, that's kind of what Wally taught me and what I like to pass on.
I think that's wonderful, and a lot of wisdom to it. I think, and from what I've learned from you and some of the work we've done in your space on the coaching side is the adage applies that we believe in, which is you often get paid for the work you put in, sometimes now, but often later. Always eventually, right? So you put in a lot of labor in your early years developing your mind and your business skills and understanding the farm, and I think you get paid today in multiples for a lot of the experience that you've had over your life, right? So it's the 20-year overnight success.
Exactly.
I really appreciate the time and wisdom from this conversation. So thanks for sharing a little bit of your story. And I know you've had such a rich experience in life that we probably could have made this a 4-hour interview and not run out of things to talk about. But I think we consolidated it really well. So appreciate your experience and your time.